Here, so we're going to be talking about the criminal investigation of the Federal Reserve, well, mainly Powell. And the idea of what it is that's taken place with this criminal investigation and what that really means for monetary policy out there. Because what we have going on right now, I feel, is a pretty big distraction away from what it is that's really the problem. I mean, let's think about this for just a minute. The Federal Reserve is an independent organization. Now, granted, there is a hybrid kind of thing happening here with the government and how it is that they are allowing certain behaviors to take place. And I guess you can say that this is a combined effort. But ultimately, the Federal Reserve is a private bank. They're a private business, right? And they do profit at times, and that profit goes to the United States. So they essentially work for the United States government, as they are not a necessarily for-profit organization, because all the profit essentially goes back to the Treasury. Now, when we think about what it is that's happening with the renovation of this Federal Reserve Bank building, and although it is part of like the government in that kind of hybrid sense, the Federal Reserve is flipping the bill, right? They're paying for this renovation out of their own pocket. This is them paying for it, not the taxpayer paying for it. But in a roundabout way, right now it is kind of the taxpayer, because essentially the Federal Reserve has what they're calling a deferred asset, meaning that they owe the Treasury money right now. They haven't profited for quite some time as the Treasury yields have risen, the asset prices have fallen, and the Federal Reserve had purchased a lot of those assets when they were high yielding, and that gets really complicated to understand. But essentially, over time, as the interest rates have risen, the asset prices have fallen, and their payment that they are getting from that low yielding debt that they had purchased during the quantitative easing isn't paying them enough to actually provide the government with all that they promised to pay. Essentially, they owe the government money, right? And now that's a deferred asset. Kind of like the way to understand what's, I guess, pissing Trump off right now with this is to think, okay, so you owe me money and you're going to go and renovate your house while you owe me a bunch of money. And you're not going to pay me the money, but yet you're going to go and renovate your house. And so this is really where I think the frustration comes in, is because the Federal Reserve right now is in a position in which that they do owe the government, right? They have been in this deferred asset, postponing payments to them because they simply haven't been able to profit enough because of that, high yielding, or the low yielding debt that they had purchased during the quantitative easing. So now that we understand what it is that's happening there a little bit more, it's not the Fed it's not the taxpayer who's paying for the Federal Reserve building, it's the Federal Reserve itself, but the Federal Reserve owes a bunch of money to the Treasury. So essentially, they're doing this renovation while basically being in debt to us. And this is really where the frustration starts to come up. But here's my frustration with this whole thing and why it's such a big deal, because this criminal investigation going into this whole matter isn't whether or not the Federal Reserve and the renovation of this building and all that. It all comes down to whether or not Powell had lied to Congress. That's it. Like nothing else is any different. Just that, right? Did Powell lie? Like if Powell screwed, like, okay, so he messed up, there was like a budget problem, right? It was just like, hey, I thought it was going to cost this much, it ended up costing this much. Okay, so you don't know what you're doing and you lost you lose your job because of that, because of your incompetence. Okay, that's one way to look at it. But then to say, hey, you lied, right? You lied about this straight up to Congress. That's a whole other story. And that's the one that they're trying to investigate. And I'm thinking to myself, that doesn't change anything. Why is it such big news? It doesn't change anything about, like, okay, listen. It's a $4 billion thing that they're talking about here. That's a lot of money. Do you know this tariff refund thing is like $175 billion? Like, it's a drop, like this whole criminal investigation into the Federal Reserve and their deployment of money and screwing it all up, and which is their money that they screwed up, right? And owing us money. 107, that's 4 billion. The tariff issue is 175 billion. Like, it's non-existent comparatively. So what is it that's really happening here? Because if it's not really about the money, right? Because again, this is the Federal Reserve's money, and although they owe the Treasury money, it's still them paying their own bills, not the taxpayer paying it, right? Taxpayer suffers because they're not paying the Treasury. Roundabout way. Okay, I get it. But it's $4 billion they're talking about. The debacle of the tariff issue is 175 billion. So there's something else taking place here, right? This is the credible threat of the Fed's independence. That's really why this is such big news. I mean, I really have to think how much money has gone into the research and the talking about and the all the economists getting paid on TV to talk about whether or not the Federal Reserve's criminal behavior is a real thing. Right? Like, I mean, look at all the discussion that has taken place out there. Does that do anything to change monetary policy whatsoever? None. Not a thing. But now there is something that is happening here, and that is the expectations and the manipulation of those expectations. Because we have to think about it. There's really nothing happening here with this Federal Reserve and this renovation of this building and the lying to Congress. Even if all of it was true, we're talking about $4 billion comparatively to a tariff debacle of 175 billion. Like, who is it that's really screwing up here? Who? And here's, okay, let's just chill for just a minute, right? I've had a little bit of coffee. It's early in the morning, right? Not okay. Let's. If you were going to go and criminally investigate the Federal Reserve, would you honestly just go for whether or not Powell lied about a renovation on a project that was from their own budget? Or would you rather like criminally investigate the Federal Reserve for some actual freaking crimes? Right? All this time, all this effort, all this energy to do a criminal investigation into the behavior of the Federal Reserve, and it's whether or not they lied to them? I mean, honestly, really, is this taking place? Like, we're going to all get together. We're going to band together. We're going to go after the Federal Reserve for their criminal behavior. You lied to Congress, pal. That's it? That is your effort. To go after the criminal behavior of the Federal Reserve is to determine whether or not Powell lied to Congress, or if Lisa Cook lied on a document about her, real estate investments. I mean, this is the criminal behavior in which that we want to investigate the Federal Reserve for. This is the time, effort, energy, communications, and everything we want to put out there for people to think about and share and discuss and internalize the criminal behavior of the Federal Reserve, and this is what they talk about? Tell me it's not a distraction. Like, people who really honestly understand the Federal Reserve and know the Federal Reserve would say, if you're going to investigate them for some real crimes, maybe it wouldn't be a distractionary one of Powell lying to Congress and Lisa Cook being a real estate, investor that lied on her mortgage applications. I mean, really, don't you think it might be a little bit more investigation into how it is that the money flies to the super ultra rich, and how it is that this constant operation is separating the rich from like the criminal behavior that really should be investigated into a deeper fashion will never be investigated because it would be literally shooting themselves in the stomach. All these people who would do the criminal, they're all in it together. Why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense. So when they go to do a criminal investigation of the Federal Reserve, this is what it looks like. Powell lied. Lisa Cook is a real estate investor lying on her mortgage application. This is the criminal investigations that they do. Oh, we investigated them. We did the criminal investigation, guys. Yeah, they lie on a mortgage application into Congress about their own budget. This is the reality that we now face. Okay. Let's set that aside for just a minute because we know that's a bunch of BS. And we can think about what it is that this means for the monetary policy through the eyes of the credible threat theory. Because that's the accurate one. What does this really mean? Right? What is this going to do in the future? This is setting up the ability to communicate about the Fed's independence going into the future. It has literally no difference. There is no real criminal investigation This isn't the real criminal behavior of the Federal Reserve. But yet, this is what they're going to go and spend time and effort and energy and research on and determine whether or not Powell lied to Congress about their own budget. This is ridiculous. Am I not? Am I missing something here? Why is it that people pay this much attention to that when they should be paying attention to what is it? Right? What this means for the elevated inflation expectation, and the raising of the neutral interest rate, because that is the monetary policy. Not this whole criminal investigation into the Federal Reserve's independence that's going to distract everybody and believe that there's some sort of question on whether or not the administration is going to be taking over the Federal Reserve. That is not it. Right? What it is the people's expectation of that, and the elevated inflation that is the results of it. You can see it plain as day. Once you recognize it, it's like almost impossible not to see it again. Sometimes it's very difficult because there we go. Sometimes it's very difficult because the idea of what it is that the Federal Reserve is doing, has been doing over the last few years, has become so ingrained into the communications out there that it makes it almost impossible to see it any other way. I mean, if you never once, ever believed that the Federal Reserve was trying to get to a 2% target, like you just didn't think that, everything starts to line up. All the behavior, everything that they were trying to do, everything that they were screaming about, it all makes sense to the credible threat theory. They were never going to bring manufacturing back to this country. That was a joke. It wasn't going to happen. The Biden administration wasn't going to do it. Trump administration isn't going to do it. There's literally no effort that can take place going into the future that can make this happen, because once you understand the Cantillon effect, you know that the ever-increasing amounts of new money is going to drive out the domestic manufacturers, and we can debate and talk and do all kinds of stuff about what it is that tariffs can do, and then they are deemed illegal and it costs you money, and every single day there's an interest payment that's incurring that's going to end up costing you even more. It's like, I don't know, what is it, $700 million a month or something like that? Here, give it just about 4 or 5 months. It's going to totally outpace the entire budget of the Federal Reserve's renovation. And it won't even matter. It'll just be like a tiny little itty-bitty drop in the bucket of problems that the government is facing with their taxpayers. Am I wrong? Like, just go check it out, man. It's just like, none of that makes sense to me at all, but when you line it up to the credible threat theory, it totally works. Because the whole point of it is to raise that inflation expectations. The whole point is to try and get money out of the country. It's not to bring manufacturing back. It's not to make them pay their fair share. Right? All that stuff that people have believed, it didn't come true. Artistic fantasies, pure imagination. And I've been saying it from the get-go. I have never, ever deviated from what it is that I have said about the tariffs from the get-go. What is it that these things mean is that people are going to behave and act as if those tariffs have already been in place, regardless of the legalities of them. They had no other choice, right? That's how the credible threat theory works. And then in the end, they were illegal. Well, that was a huge debacle, because now it's end up costing not only the taxpayers, because they got to refund all the money, but they got to pay an interest payment on it as well. Oh, good job. That really worked out well, didn't it? And you want to complain about a clown in the Fed screwing up his $2 billion budget that's now, or $2.5 billion budget that's now $4 billion, and yet here it is. There's debacle of the Federal Reserve, or the debacle of the tariffs comparatively to it is like, the Federal Reserve is an insignificant problem. Tiny. Why the hell are they even discussing it? Because it raises the inflation expectation. The Fed independence, the communication about it, whether or not the administration is going to take over, this starts putting the fear and anxiety into the people. That starts elevating the inflation expectations. Boom, win for the monetary policy. Right? Raises that neutral interest rate. This is so easy to see, guys. Once you see it, it's like it's impossible not to see it. And I can describe it the same every time. It doesn't change. Everything is lining up for it. Every single story, every single war, every single event, every single government action, all these things end up doing the exact same thing. ends up being a non-event, a debacle, a screw up, and it ends up costing the taxpayer, costing the people. And what it is doing is it's driving ever increasing amounts of new money into the system, and it's separating the rich from the poor. And if you don't do this, there's going to be a complete collapse of the system anyway. So it's fun to watch it. Like, where's my popcorn, man? All right, how many minutes into this? 15. I don't know how many of you have actually joined in on the UE University to see the credible threat theory, but you ought to really check it out. The theories look something like this. Let me just kind of give you a small example, right? Just so you can kind of see it. And I'm just going to flip my computer around here so you can check it out. All right. So they're like these PowerPoint presentations.
By printing trillions didn't spark inflation.
So this is what it looks
QE
like.
alone isn't enough. By printing trillions didn't spark inflation. By the end of this module, students should understand what quantitative easing is, why the Federal Reserve used it after the global financial crisis, why massive money creation did not lead to a strong inflation, why expectations began to matter more than the amount of money created.
That's an hour-long video series. Now, I know it sounds boring as hell, but if you don't go through it, then you'll never get it. You'll never understand it, never see it, and then you'll be stuck in the narrative just like everybody else. And here on the Uneducated Economist in the UE University, we're going to be listening to what it is that you're talking about and saying, because you're talking and saying things that are describing the monetary policy, and we're listening for it. As you talk about the criminal investigation of Lisa Cook, and you're talking about the problems of the Federal Reserves and their budget and overrun on the renovation of the buildings, and you're talking about all those other stuff, we're going to be thinking about the elevated inflation and inflation expectations as a result of it raising the neutral interest rate. And the only way you're really going to understand it is by going through that video series of the credible threat theory. I don't know anybody else who's going to share it with you. I mean, you can go through the few thousand documents like I have in order to acquire the speeches and the understanding of what it is that the Federal Reserve is attempting to do with their monetary policy, considering what it was that they were facing back in 2019 with an ungodly low inflation expectation, even after all the quantitative easing and the low unemployment rate. They were failing bad. And that credible threat theory describes it to a T. Right? Describes everything that was taking place in the situation we now face today. And once you go through that, you'll be able to look at like this criminal investigation in a whole different kind of understanding. You're going to look at that and you're going to be like, okay, well, first of all, Powell doesn't really matter to the FOMC, right? He's one member, one vote, right? The whole question of it is whether or not the Fed is going to be independent going into the future. That's incredibly important to understand because that elevates the inflation and inflation expectations. This is the important part of it. As people are looking at this going, oh man, this is crazy. This is what is going on. The energy prices, all this other stuff that goes up. I push back and say, there it is. That's the communication that I was looking to see within the narrative being spoken in order to elevate that inflation expectation. That's the monetary policy right there. As people are describing, literally saying it to me, I'm thinking you're literally giving me the information that I need to hear in order to understand what it is that has been spoken by the powers that be and delivered to the people. And that is the propagandized information. And when I hear people talking about it, I think, bang, there it is. It's been delivered. What is this going to do? It's going to raise the neutral interest rate. It's going to make the economy far less restricted for the people at the top. The consumers at the top, right? And like it's not down in the working class. We are not the ones who do it anymore. All right, let's read some comments. Man, there's join UE. It's awesome. Thank you, Brody. Thank you, all nighter. Boy, you guys are always here, man. I really appreciate it, even early in the morning, man. All right. And cheers to all nighter. Well, if truth destroys, what are you protecting? I'm not protecting anything. Like, I just let it go, man. Like, whatever it is, this is people. I think it's pretty funny when people say, man, you're just a shill for the Fed. And I'm thinking, what? You know, it was just like, man, if everybody understood it the way I did, the Federal Reserve would fail. Like, in order to end the Fed, you have to be able to disassemble their monetary policy from the inside out. And in order to do that, we have to really think like what it is that they are needing for their strategy. And if we have elevated inflation expectations, it's a win for them. Like, they desperately needed it. I don't know, like, how many times do I have to go over monetary policy strategies for a low neutral interest rate world where he straight up said it. The problem we need to solve is a risk of inflation that is persistently too low rather than too high. Here it is, rather too high, right? All right. You're playing with the rigged game. Well, whatever. I mean, that's just the thing. Like, rigged or not, lies or not, I don't know what it is that people are going to do with their expectations of their understanding of the Fed. If they say, oh man, they're just nothing but liars, criminals, and it is list off all these things. And I think to myself, okay, great. How are you going to position yourself for that? You have no other choice but to be 100% in gold or maybe Bitcoin and guns and ammo and beans. And so, like, to me, I would much rather try to understand the Federal Reserve and their business tactics and the reasonings that they are taking the strategies they are. And I don't want to look at them as just being criminals, because if that's the only intent that I have for the information, that's the only thing that I would receive. I wouldn't be able to understand their strategy in the level that I do, to be able to share it from a working class point of view with the people out there so that they can internalize it and see it the same way. To think to themselves, holy crap, man, Powell doesn't really mean that much to the Fed. His position, the expectations of the position, the belief of the position, the administration screaming at the position, all that other stuff has a lot of attention, but it doesn't really have a lot of meaning behind it outside of him being the spokesperson for the FOMC. He speaks on behalf of the FOMC. That's what the chairman does. There's 11 other voting members. Right? Like, there's a whole team of people who put together the monetary policy. Not one person. That's not how it works. And to believe that it does, to even suggest that it does, to put out the thought and the energy and the belief that it does, is literally spreading propagandized lies. That's why I don't trust the administration even a little bit. If you're going to do a criminal investigation into the Federal Reserve, you think it might be a little bit deeper than whether or not Powell lied about his budget to the Congress. Right? Like, if you were going to, right, Trump? Like, this is a message directly to Donald Trump. If you're going to criminally investigate the Federal Reserve, don't you think you might want to do something a little bit deeper than just a budget question? Their own budget? Like, it's not even a taxpayer's budget. It's the Federal Reserve's own budget, and granted, in a roundabout way, it does cost the taxpayers. But don't you think you might want to go a little deeper than that and really do some criminal investigation? No? And I mean, really, we're talking $4 billion against your debacle of $175 billion tariff BS. So which one, like, who's the real criminal here, bruh? Yeah, just asking. Let's see here. Maybe there's something else going on. Maybe not. I sure don't know, but I like brick now. I do know that. Brick lasts a long time. Huh. All right. The Fed is fundamentally usurious. Yeah. Trump is distracting you, not distracting me. Right? Distracting the people for sure. I mean, like, the way I see it, I mean, it's just like everything that they communicate out there, I just think about how that's going to either elevate the inflation expectation or not. That's it. Because there's literally nothing deployed out there into the mainstream media, news articles, anything else. There's nothing that's put out there that is information that they don't want you to have. Like, they want you to have this here. Take this, run with it. And that's the only thing you'll ever get from them. They will never deliver you anything else. How many times over the course of the last 5 years did you ever hear the Federal Reserve describe how they were going for an average inflation targeting? Not once. They all said that they were going for their 2%. One message, one public made message that I heard coming from the Federal Reserve itself was the press conference that Powell gave right after his speech saying that that's what they were doing. After that, complete silence. Right? And as I kept trying to share it, getting very frustrated with people as they were like, dude, they're going, look at everybody says they're 2% target. And I'm like, yeah, I know, and a bunch of horseshit. Right? And I kept trying to share that with people and showing them how it was that they were going for average inflation targeting over the course of the 5 years, from the consensus statement, from Powell's speech, from the strategy that was talked about from John Williams, like everything that I had been trying to find and share through the Fed's own speeches had been literally pushed against from the mainstream media that was propagandized information, and that became the narrative. And I'm like, no, that's not right. Listen to what the Fed said. They are going for average inflation targeting to make up for the past misses from the 2% target over the previous 10 years. I said it over and over and over again, and literally everybody missed it. Nobody knows that that's what they were attempting to do. That was the whole point of me even developing the credible threat theory course, is to make sure that that goes down in history as what it is that actually happened, because the propagandized information that was deployed is what is going to be history. People with the loudest voice who tell the best story tell the history. It doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean it was accurate. It didn't mean it was truthful, but it will be history. Right? If you know so much about economics, why do you live in your truck? Well, there you go, Aaron. Here's the thing, Aaron. You're obviously low level. And I don't mean to be accusatory in that sense, but your comment just really straight up says it. Never once have I ever had anybody ever come to me who had any kind of sense of money, any kind of any kind of significance or abundance in their life. Never once did they ever come to me and say, dude, what kind of vehicle do you drive? You can't see it, but I live in that house right there. This vehicle is incredibly cheap, cost me very little to drive outside the fact that it's a Suburban and it costs a lot in gas. Right? I have made videos that talk about whether or not you want to be rich by the assets that you buy. And if you want to be rich, you drive a POS beater. That video has gotten close to 750,000 views and has pretty much paid for all my vehicles. So now you can take your extra money, all the money beyond the money you're already making, you go dump it into your fancy vehicle, your fancy truck, or whatever it is that you want, and you live your superficial life. The rest of us here, we're actually trying to do something with our lives. And driving a fancy vehicle is far from it. If you got the money, cool. If you don't, what the hell are you doing driving a fancy car? There's plenty of beaters out there, and you can be rich by driving one. I know. Right? You gotta, there's a piece of property right there that I'm picking up. It's going up in value because I bought it in a super expensive area. Cost me just about everything to get into it. Right? But I was able to pull it off, and you know what? I wouldn't have been able to do it if I had a fancy car. Right? The only reason why I was able to buy a house in one of the most expensive areas in the entire nation is because I was driving a 99 Toyota Corolla. Right? People watched me do that. They watched me drive a 99 Toyota Corolla and save $42,000 so that I can put it down on this house. Right? So how smart are you when it comes to economics? Just asking, right? Are you the type of person who's going to increase your industriousness so that you can secure a decent rate of interest beyond that of your occupation? Or are you going to be one of the people who work eagerly hard to acquire what it is that you want in your life, but not put in much effort beyond that? Right? Who's the economist here? Just saying, Aaron. All right. Okay. Up early today. Yes, I am. So you could go in today. The truck can be a home, a school, a broadcasting studio, a beater vehicle, all in one go. Talk about value. Yeah, you're right. All right, moving on. The acoustics of the car are much better than in a house. They are so right about that. And that was the reason that I really started doing it in the cars, just because of that. You know, the kids running around, the dog barking or something of that nature. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go do this video real quick out in the car. And it has great sound. All right. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Leave him alone. He is sharing economic truth. Don't harass. Yeah, don't worry about it. Here we go. We don't need this type of communication. So here was. How about for the rest here? We don't need him around for now. So, I mean, here's the thing. If we're going to be here and we're going to talk about this stuff, we're going to talk about economics, right? This is what we're here for. This is what we're learning. We're not here to sit there and joke around and call each other clowns and stuff. It just ain't going to be that way. All right. Freedom is all that matters to me. Well, good. I mean, and that's the thing is like most people don't even understand what it is to have freedom. Like, I mean, I personally took it upon myself to do research for into the Constitution. Right now, when it comes to understanding the Constitution, the majority of it is how government's supposed to behave. To try and like internalize every single bit of that Constitution on how the government behaves is an incredibly boring task. But you know, it's pretty important to know what it says in there. When it comes to the personal freedoms of the individual, to have memorized the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, they really screwed up making the Constitution. I don't know if this was some kind of weird, like, founding farmers ploy. Anyway, they screwed up by creating a Constitution without having the rights and then immediately amending the Constitution by putting rights in there as like there was this Band-Aid that needed to take place for it. That right there started bringing it up into question on whether or not these rights or what these rights are, or whether or not you have these rights. And to me, that's not something that's up to question. That's like, this is a list of the rights that we provide to the government to let them know what they are. Because they don't tell us, they don't determine what they are. They don't get to do that. We tell them what they are. And that's the difference inside of it, is that most people don't even know what that is. That they can't list that. And so when they go to vote for people, when they go to talk to people, when they go and do their, you know, political discussions or whatever, very few of them can take into consideration what it is that's happening inside of the freedom movement, or whether or not they're even losing their freedoms because they just simply don't know what they are. All right? You know, it was so funny. I went to a presentation, I went to a production, right, a play. It was called What the Constitution Means to Me. Great, right? All the way good, except at the very end, collectively, one person was brought up on the stage to vote whether or not we should abolish the Constitution. And that one person voted for the group. And I'm sitting there in the crowd, and I was so disappointed. I'm sitting there going like, holy crap. This person, this one person with her opinion, got up on the stage and voted to abolish the Constitution, and that was a vote for all of us, and everybody cheered. I mean, I didn't cheer, right? I didn't clap. That was one of the few productions that I ever gone to where I didn't actually applaud. I was disappointed. Hey, great production. Everything went off well. Actors, actresses, so good, right? Everything, like the performance itself was this exquisite. They did a great job on it, right? But the meaning behind it was so disappointing to me. You know, I thought to myself, I would love to have gotten up on stage right there and I asked every single person right now if they could list the Bill of Rights. Can you sit there and dictate them to me? Can you sit there and just list them off? Right? Freedom of speech, right to bear arms, right? The right not to quarter troops lest during a time of war, the rights of the people to be secure in the person's houses, papers, and effects from unreasonable searches and seizures, right? All these rights. There's a list of 10 of them, and I doubt anybody in that room could have listed them. They might be able to get 2, 3, 4, but I doubt any of them could have done all 10. But yet, they were ready to abolish the Constitution. And I'm thinking, do you have any idea what you're attempting to abolish? I mean, if you can't sit there and spit out the Bill of Rights to me and tell me what they mean deeply, and then tell me that you're willing to abolish those things, you're worthless to me. I don't know what it is that you need in this country, what it is you're expecting from this world, but that is like probably one of the lowest level things that I could ever think of somebody doing. You're going to sit there and understand the constitutional rights that you have delivered to the government. The government doesn't deliver them to you. You delivered them to the government. You're going to understand those rights deeply and then abolish them? Whatever. You know? But, that's how you're going to vote? Okay. Well, I guess I know what kind of government that I'm going to have to be dealing with, and I have very little respect for it. That's what ends up happening because of this. Articles of the Confederation was better, less central control. I was born on the 4th in 76. Right on. You're actually, hey, Wayne, we're pretty close. I mean, I was born on the 27th of 76. So, we are at the point where less people purchase house, car, stuff. We already have stuff. We don't need more. Higher inflation prices go more economy tasks. For example, gas prices spike, market tanks. Yeah, this is the unfortunate consequences of living in an economy that no longer is functioning for the working class individual. We used to be very important. Like the individual, working class, was very important. We try to make ourselves important to their situation. We are not, and we have to exclude ourselves from this idea because we are no longer important to them. Once you see that, once you understand it, it's going to be a lot easier to figure out how to operate within this system because they are not going to do anything to help you. They can't. Please understand that. It's not because I'm being mean or anything else. It's just because of the natural consequences of the underlying economic forces known as the Cantillon effect, right? If you ever increasing amounts of new money that pours into the system, you are going to have a separation between the rich and the poor. The people at the top end up being the consumer, and the people at the bottom fall into poverty. And ultimately, the manufacturing base that was in this country that provided a good, strong working middle class doesn't exist here anymore, and it's not coming back, and there's nothing they can do to fix it. Sorry to say it, man. I mean, you can go and listen to a bunch of people who are going to feed you a line of BS who will try to explain to you what it is that they can do to make the life better for you, but they're lying. They don't know. They're delusional. It's artistic fantasies and pure imagination. It isn't going to go down that way. To understand it from the underlying economic forces that are playing out is going to give you a much better understanding of what it is that you need to do for yourself and your family and your friends and everything else. There's nothing they can do, guys. I don't know what it is that people would expect them to do. Do you expect them to pay their fair share? I mean, come on. That ain't going to happen. So if they're not going to pay their fair share and there's nothing you can do to change their behavior, and there's going to be ever increasing amounts of new money that comes into the system, we can expect that there's going to be more of these same problems of inequality, and it's going to get ugly. Like, people are not going to have a position in which that any effort that they do within their common daily lives will be able to provide them with the experience of how home ownership or something of that, or family experience or anything. Like, all that stuff is going out the window. And it's not coming back. And as much as it sounds great to say, hey, we need to bring this back, we need to figure out the efforts, we need to do the work and stick it out and do all that other stuff. Hey, sounds wonderful. Sounds like a great thing. Can you give me any example in history of that taking place? Any lasting experience in history of that taking place? I can't. Right? Because if I could, then I would talk about it. Now, there are political efforts that are been deployed that will be like, well, what about the decade right here? Wasn't that a nice sweet spot? And like, okay, can you give me any sustainable example from history other than a flash in the pan event that was great for maybe a small decade or possibly a generation if you're lucky? No, of course not, because it doesn't work like that. right? It just doesn't work like that. I don't care what examples that you tried to deploy out there as far as like what it is that happened, they are short-lived. All of them are, right? Hey, thank you very much. Mark's, what does it say? Mark's Practical Films? Right on. Thank you very much for the $5. Will high unemployment numbers lower the neutral interest rate? I don't think so. No. I don't think high, because the thing is like we have to understand what is it that's raising and lowering the neutral interest rate. Now, if there is high unemployment, like significant, and that pushed the inflation expectations down, then yes, right? Because the unemployment is the jobs market is not the important factor it used to be. And again, this is all in the credible threat theory. I mean, you guys really need to internalize that information. You can go to the UE University, or it's also here on YouTube, but you have to be at the collective, the UE Collective, which it's more expensive to be at the UE Collective, so I suggest is go to the school university and be part of that community. So the UE University there. So understanding like how the Federal Reserve used to operate was very focused in on the jobs numbers. It was very important. If people were working, people were consuming. Now, we don't consume like we used to. Even if you have very low unemployment, we still don't increase our consumption enough to actually create an inflationary pressure. So the working individual employment, low unemployment, all that other stuff, not so important anymore. Very important prior to like the great financial crisis, and really very important prior to the 70s, right? But really after the great financial crisis, the unemployment numbers and working individuals and stuff really just became inconsequential to the monetary policy. They wanted it to be, like the Fed really wanted it to be. They tried efforts to do that. Like they lowered interest rates historically low, kept them there, let unemployment fall to historically low levels, and then it stayed there for a very long time. The Fed's like, yeah, let it run hot, let the unemployment run, let the employment numbers run hot, right? Like we want labor market running hot, and it did. And there was job openings everywhere, and wages increased, and everybody was just like, hey man, it's awesome, we don't have to worry about finding work. I did videos saying don't ghost your job, and people are like, screwed jobs if they paid more consumption. Sorry guys, working class, hopefully you guys find something to eat. Okay, asset holders, let's do this. That's it. Working class, I hope you guys see flipping burgers and driving trucks. Asset holders, you're the economy now. Just 10 to 20% of you. Let's get this thing done. Right? And that's the unfortunate consequences that we now face. It's just like they don't care about us anymore. There's literally nothing in the monetary policy that gives a care about us. The working class individual, it's not in the cards. And I know it's just like it's so disappointing to hear it, but once you get it and once you understand it, then you're like, okay, well, I'll just deal with it in that fashion then. All right. You think the ticks are bad, mosquitoes, fleas, mites too? What are you guys talking about? All right. Pace of change accelerating and difficult level increase, thus more challenge to earn higher income faster. Have you heard of propertarianism? What was it? Propertarianism or the Natural Law Institute? Man, I think I've heard about it, but I don't think I've done any kind of real look or research into it. Don't judge a book by the cover. Simon's rig will probably run over the thing you got. Start talking freedom, you get the buffer wheel. Yeah. Oh, is it? Hold on one second, guys. Do I have the Wi-Fi on? Oh, I'm sorry. I had the Wi-Fi on the whole time. No wonder why it was. All right. Everything's connected. Financial issues are spiritual issues. Yeah, I can kind of almost see that. Like, to me, the economy is the mechanical form of consciousness. So it's like everything is connected to each other. For whatever reason, you might feel the separation Everything is literally touching everything else. And it wouldn't have happened the way it did if you didn't perform the things that you did. Everybody working simultaneously to make something happen. It's just like, it's weird to think like what it took to get this cup of coffee to me. Like how much effort, how much global effort went into acquiring this cup of coffee. And when you really start thinking about how it is that everybody was connected to each other in one way or another to get this cup of coffee to me, it literally was a conscious effort of everybody simultaneously working so that I could have this cup of coffee at once, right? Like, I don't know how many people see that, but when you think about everything being a single consciousness, which is really like, I know it's like woo-woo, whatever, like crystal grip and hippie stuff, but whatever. When you start thinking about everything being a single consciousness, then you really start looking at it in that fashion. You start thinking, okay, well, everybody's behavior is interacting with everybody else's behavior. If you have somebody who's disrupting the situation, right, that infects the other people, very much like we had earlier today. So it's just like, if we're not going to discuss economics or we're not going to be, to the topic, then you got to go, right? It's just like having somebody in your house. You open up your house to a party, right? And somebody comes in and they're just drunk and belligerent and they're disrupting everybody and nobody's longer having a good time. You have to escort that person out and say, I'm sorry, man, you can't be here anymore. You're too disruptive and you're not, you're making it hard for everybody else. To like that person infected the consciousness of everybody. It's like you're experiencing everybody's experience at once, no matter what it is. All right. And as much as you want to exclude it, say, hey, I don't want this in my life, the fact that it is there is now present in your life and it's present in your experience. And so it's part of the consciousness now, no matter what. And so everything is connected to each other in this fashion. It's all one single energy when it comes down to the bottom line. And now you can see this in economics. You can see the physical form of it. Like the fact that this cup of coffee is sitting here in front of me was because of everybody's effort across the globe simultaneously making it happen. All right. If you love someone and they ask to borrow, you don't charge interest. Merriman, I don't lend money out there. Like, if somebody comes to me and says, dude, can I borrow $1,000, whatever from, I'll be like, no, you can't borrow $1,000. I don't have $1,000 alone. Right. I have $1,000 to invest, but I don't have $1,000 to just hand out there. Sorry. I need it. Right. I need it for mine. Now, I truly love somebody and all that other. It very well could be, it'd be like, here you go. Don't pay it back. If you do, cool. Otherwise, just keep it. Right? Because if I expect you to pay it back without interest, without a timeline, without a contract, right, I'm going to get very frustrated with you if you don't do it. So, yeah, just keep it. Okay? It's all yours. Don't ask me again. Make sense? Right? Keep simplifying the message. Took me a long time to understand what your theory. Yeah. Like you said before, you were speaking a different language. Well, thank you, Dan. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna stick with it because it's the only accurate one. I can't. Oh, turn my battery off. I can't change what it is that I see or feel or think out there when it comes to the economy now. The research that I have done is now so ingrained, right, into my understanding that to observe it any other way would be literally lying to myself. It would be pushing against the things that I believe. And now I understand that the majority of the people out there will never, ever, ever be able to understand what it is that I have found or dug up and tried to provide. It's not that it's not like it's so complicated that they can't wrap their heads around it. It's just that the belief system that they have taken on from movies, music, society, teachers, parents, everything else, that is very difficult to switch, right? Like once you have set your belief system into motion, it becomes very, very difficult to then switch that belief system. For me, it was literally one speech at a time. And I'm like, huh, that's interesting. Huh, that's interesting. And slowly, piece by piece, I was able to change my belief system based on the understandings that I was getting from the credible threat theory, all the speeches that I have, essentially gone through and pieced together in order to come up with this idea of what it is that's happening with monetary policy. Throughout that research, I literally found within the research how it is that they are going to deploy propagandized information. And when I found that, I'm like, holy crap, I got it. I nailed it. This is it. I got to share this with the world. Everybody's got to see this. But the propagandized information was too powerful. And it was so much pushback. Dude, don't you understand? Money printer go brr, prices go up. You're such an ignorant fool. You're just a Fed shill. There it goes, man. All right. You're going to lend all the power to the Fed, and the Fed's going to totally succeed off of this. Think about it. They say they're in a good spot right now. Like, everybody said they screwed up for the last few years, and they're saying, oh, well, yeah, we screwed up real bad. Made a mistake. Transitory. Huh, who knew? Huh. But we're in a good spot. Really? Like, you screwed up to, like, like, bam, bam, stumbling, bam, boom, boom. Where'd you land? Oh, in a good spot. That's cool. Come on, right? They did it on purpose. They did because you can find it in the research. You can see it in their own words, in their own statements. You can see it. They're saying, man, we need to figure out a way to deploy information through music videos and social media posts to elevate the inflation expectations. They literally said it in their own documents. And so when I look at this stuff and I think about it, I'm like, man, it is going to be so hard once this passes to ever convince anybody of the history. Like, I tried, my entire channel has documented it every single day, but this is really what it comes down to, is that people are going to miss it. It is not going to go down in history as the accurate way of depicting it. People are going to look at the pandemic as, this issue that created this inflation that was, never able to be solved again. And I'm thinking that is probably like an inflation expectation that is persistently too high. Perfect. Right in line with what John Williams asked for. I don't know how it is that this could be mistaken for anything else other than the credible threat theory, right? The credible threat theory is literally the monetary policy of the Federal Reserve. That's it, right? Like, the monetary policy that you hear, like, if you were to, oh, well, interest rate adjustments to deal with, inflation, blah, 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 right? No. It's expectation management. Straight up. All right. Looks like the sun is coming up. Yes, it is. All right. 1% ain't bad, I suppose, but still the principle. Tough love. Love them and do not loan them. Yeah. I borrowed money from my grandfather. I paid interest 1% lower than the bank would charge. It was drawn up by a lawyer. It worked out fabulously. Yeah, Wayne, I did the same thing. I did a little bit higher interest rate to get this truck, but I did the same thing. But I borrowed money with collateral, right? I borrowed $3,000 to get the truck, and I used 100 ounces of silver to do it. Now, at the time, it was only $30 an ounce. In fact, it was a little less than that. So, well, no, I'm sorry. We did the deal for $30 an ounce. It was $32 an ounce at the time that we did the deal. I bought all the silver back at $33 an ounce. By the time I was buying the last bar back, it was up closer to $40 an ounce. So for me, although 10% was a high interest rate to pay, it was $3,000, paid $300 to borrow it, used my silver as collateral, and I didn't have to give up any cash. I was able to earn the money and pay the truck off, right? So that worked out really well for me. No, everybody could have walked away from the deal at any given time, and everybody would have been whole. Like, even if I never made a payment on it, nothing, right? Or tried to buy the silver back, everybody was whole from the very beginning. Right? Like, nobody had to trust anybody. That was awesome. – A couple of that with fuel prices, and we're gonna get some high food prices this year. It cracks me up that I watched the sun come up on Simon's side of the US, and the sun has been up for over 2 hours here. Yeah. Jeff got two sunrises in a day. Yeah. I borrowed friends' money. I got some back, never all. I was in a position to give some money away. I know who to trust, who with what. Lessons are education, no such thing as a free lunch, right? And that's the thing. Somebody asks, like, if somebody really comes up and says, "Oh man, dude, can I borrow $100?" And I'm like, $100? You're like, you seem fairly trustworthy. What do you need 100? You sure, whatever. I might actually loan it to them. Because I think $100 is a small price to pay to learn something about somebody. Yeah, because it could cost you a lot more in the end. You loan them $100 and you never see them. They never made any attempt to pay you back. It was just like, okay, I got it, man. That was okay. Keep the $100, right? Got it. I know. I know who I'm dealing with now. And that guy comes right back and is like, dude, thank you so much. I needed that. Here you go. Oh hell yeah, man. We got somebody here. We got somebody who's trustworthy, right? As long as they ain't playing, yeah. Yeah. I guess somebody who could possibly be trustworthy. Okay, good topic, borrowing because things are getting hectic. All right, are we done here, guys? I got my last acting class today. It's a little tiny performance. You just basically run these skits, and I will have my weekends back again. Great point. I have lost a lot to learn who people really are. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Like if you think about it in that fashion, everybody is either an asset or a liability to you, right? And what kind of asset are they? Like, are they, you don't necessarily have to get something from them. It just might be somebody you really enjoy, like, fishing with, right? It's just like, yeah, they're not much for anything else, but fishing, man, we get along great and it's all wonderful, right? That's an asset, And I mean, a hangout buddy who goes fishing, who's like, a great fishing buddy, awesome. But if you have somebody who, like, is just constantly coming around attempting to eat your food and drink your beer and whatever to suck off the things that you have in your existence, then yeah, that's probably a liability, unless they are able to perform for you something that is helpful and useful in your existence, like they really take care of the things that are going on in your it's just like, hey man, I noticed that the lawn isn't mowed, can I take care of that for you? I've been over here eating dinner every night, it would be awesome if I could do that. Hell yeah, right? That's the interactions that you're kind of looking for. It's like, shit, you can mow the lawn, you can come over here every day if you want. It's like, uh, since COVID, the solution to all problems on Earth have been simplified to most likely results. Got to be a fair exchange. All right, guys, this was awesome. I hope this gets internalized for some people out there about what's happening with this Powell investigation, this criminal investigation. Because to me, I think it's very, like, very distracting to do a criminal investigation into the Federal Reserve's misbehavior of their own budget in a roundabout way that costs the taxpayers money. You got the tariff debacle that cost, what, I don't even know, 25 times more. than the problems of the Federal Reserve. And so if I think about like what it is that a real criminal investigation into the Federal Reserve would look like, this isn't it, right? And the whole idea behind it all is really just questioning the Fed independence, and most of that is just going to be used to propagate an inflationary expectation. Right? Huge distraction from what? Who knows? Maybe. I don't think it's a distraction away from anything. I think what it is, it's a setup for Fed independence questioning, right? And so now if you put out there enough talking points, depending on how you communicate it out there, you can push an inflation expectation with the like the lack of, like, the Fed independence, like the Fed losing its independence and the administration taking over or something like that. If this becomes propagated information, right? And it's going to be. You can already see it coming, right? So, but if it gets propagated really big, and that's the only message that is delivered throughout all the mainstream medias, that will be what people will feel, and that will elevate the inflation expectations, which in turn will raise the neutral interest rate. Remember, it's all about keeping the inflation expectations rolling, whether it's through credible threat of sickness, war, tariffs, Fed independence, make something else up. I don't know. There's going to be something in there, right? If they could keep that inflation expectation rolling, that's the monetary policy, because once they start losing the inflation, they lose their monetary policy as well, because the Fed funds rate will then go back towards zero, and they will no longer be able to use an interest rate adjustment to stimulate the economy. So it's very important to understand this. There is no downward adjustment in Fed funds rate that can stimulate the economy. It does not exist. There might be a little bit of an attempt if they kept an inflationary expectation that was elevated while at the same time, which wouldn't make sense, lowering the Fed funds rate back to zero. That might stimulate the economy. But that's not what's going to happen. That's not how the Fed operates. That's not what's going to happen. That's not the way it works. What's going to end up happening is the elevated inflation expectation will run persistently high into the future, which is going to keep that elevated neutral interest rate, and the communication that is being deployed will move that neutral interest rate around, which is the monetary policy now. The Fed doesn't want to move. They might move a little bit just to keep the credible threat, but they do not want to go back down to zero, because there's no monetary policy stimulation by doing that. It doesn't exist like that, because they can't get far enough below zero to actually stimulate the economy. They run into the lower bound. The R star, very close to the lower bound. There is no adjustment of interest rates to stimulate the economy. It doesn't exist, right? I mean, small window of opportunity might exist if you dropped interest rates while at the same time maintaining elevated inflation, which doesn't make any sense at all. If that was the case, if that hypothetical, very unlikely situation, then there might be an adjustment of interest rates that could stimulate the economy. But that's it. That's the only way it works. All right? Other than that, there is no adjustment of interest rates to stimulate the economy. It doesn't exist anymore. Give it some time, enough time, then you might be able to pull that neutral interest rate, R star. Not just the there's two interest rates, neutral interest rates, R star, and then the inflationary component that's stacked on R star. That's the Fed's neutral position with the inflationary scenario. If you remove the inflationary scenario, R star is what the Federal Reserve is looking at as far as the neutral interest rate goes, and that is very close to zero. If you have R star that is very close to zero, slightly above it, 0.5%, 1% above zero, you stack a 2-3% inflationary scenario on top of that, the Fed funds rate has to be up around 4%, 3 to 4% in order to remain neutral. This is how they are now operating their monetary policy. It's not the interest rate adjustment, it's the expectation of inflation that then has the Fed funds rate either neutral or not. But they don't want to move. They want the inflation expectation to move in relation to it. Does that make sense? If not, you got to go to the UE University, download the credible threat theory, because then it will make sense. All right? Then it will totally make sense to you. All right. It was already unsavable system. Then we went to Iran. I don't know about. I mean, yeah, this is. I don't know if that's any different. Okay, but Sasquatch sightings are actually up. Doubling up on the vitamin D. All right. It was already, we already said that one. All right. Humanity is cooked. This mess will get fixed. Look at all the countries near collapse. Germany was near collapse in 1929. Yeah. Do you not notice? Like, here's the thing. Do you not see how Germany was the manufacturing powerhouse? They had awesome manufacturing standard of living. And now Volkswagen is moving out. All the manufacturers are moving out because the efforts of trying to keep these manufacturers in that country are becoming very difficult. This is the problem that you faced with the Cantillon effect. Yeah, great, right? We rose as this manufacturing industrial powerhouse, and now we have a very difficult time holding on to that, and we are going to lose it. Germany, the United States, All the nations are going to face it. They can do the expansion of the money supply to try and keep pouring the new money in because their manufacturing ain't going to do it. Right? Their manufacturing ain't going to be enough to do it anymore. So they're going to have to print money to keep that money pouring in. And if that new money turns off, they all fall into pain and misery. Right? Germany is not a success story. I don't know where that comes from. It's not. It's an obvious failure that's taken place, and they're doing their best to keep it together. Love the way you give, love the way you cite sources to get your own info. I have double checked you several times and agree 100% of 95% of what you say. You agree with 100% of 95% of what I say? I like that. What is does that mean, do you agree with 95% of what I say? Is that what you're I love percentages. Thank you very much, Memo. All right. Simon's educational career on video would probably be banned because he would be educating the audience in the world. No, well, I'm pretty sure the channel is getting, like, you can see a systematic kind of disassembling of the channel. Like, you can see it in the way, like, the subscribers are removed. It's in bursts, and it's like in a very, like, time, like, it's done on time, and it's done on, like, a certain graph. Like, you could almost graph it out, you know? Like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like over the course of the last probably year and a half, you can see like this very, very, like, I wouldn't necessarily say, like, it's almost, it appears to be deliberate, right? And how it is that it's done. And so at first I thought, okay, well, YouTube just purges out dead accounts, and this is the reason why you're saying it, like, oh, they went through, they did this, they did it. But you can see it's like boom, 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 and it's just like every single time, and it's just like, wait a minute here. This is more than just like a purging out of dead accounts. This is like continuation of not of like very similar actions taking place month after month after month, right? And it's like not like a random, like, oh, hey, we're cleared out like 50 accounts. Oh, we cleared out, 10 accounts. We cleared out 60 accounts. It's not like that. It's like this much, this much, this much, this much. And it's like, a certain amount that is happening just about every time. And although that is depleting, like, it started off really big and it's getting smaller. It's just like watching it happen. It was like, at first I'm thinking, well, what's going on here? Is this a cleaning up the subscribers or something of that nature? And then I realized, no, this is like actual, like, something's happening here. It's like a disassembling, So, at first I was like, oh man, this sucks. And yeah, well, whatever, I mean, it's just like, it is what it is, and not my platform. And the fact it's happening isn't really anything that I can do to change it other than, just keep putting out my content, move on to other platforms, and, keep spreading the information. Because if they're trying to squash it, then it just means that that's more important to me, and if that's really what is happening. I mean, I have a hard time believing that they would be screwing around with a little uneducated economist and the information that is being deployed. But when I hear and see some of the other information that is being pushed out there and how well it's spread, and I think to myself, when I'm a good Googler and I spread what it is that Google wants me to spread, oh, it'll catch the algorithm and go like crazy. And I'm thinking, oh, this is how they do it, right? Because see, if you really want to make money, this is how I know they're really doing it. If you want to make money on YouTube, you just follow the narratives, follow what it is that Google wants you to spread, right? If you spread that misinformation, that propagandized information, whether you believe it or not, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, because these people probably really believe the information that they're spreading out there, and Google really loves it too. So they're like, hey, that's great information. Go here, let's give that to everybody, because that's what they want shared. Right? Here's that information that they want that propagandized information they want deployed out there. They push that. But if you have information that pushes against that, why would they share that? In fact, why would they pay you to do that? They're paying people to spread propagandized information. They're not paying people to spread the real stuff. In fact, they want to not pay you to do that. And so what they do is they squash your channel and they make sure that you don't get the audience and that you don't have, the viewers and stuff. And so it pushes you into trying to spread that propagandized, Googled information because you're going to make a hell of a lot more money on YouTube doing that. Like, I see it every single day. I know I've tested this theory, right? I put out plenty of fear-mongering titles that went right in line with what it is that a lot of people were feeling about the narrative at the time, and my channel just blows up, man. I can make all kinds of money at it. And I told people on YouTube as I was doing it. Like I'm saying, I'm doing this with these titles right now to make a bunch of money off of YouTube, and it worked. It so worked. And people got upset with me. In fact, I had a bunch of people say, well, this is what you're going to do. I'm going to bail out of here. And I'm like, oh, I was just testing the theory out. But whatever. If you got to go, you got to go. Right? But once I realized and I saw it for that, for that reality to it, I just realized, man, all the popular YouTube channels are out there. The reason why they're popular is because that's the information that essentially Google wants spread. And a lot of it is, to me, is misinformation, and not that they know it, right? Because I feel that most of them probably really believe it. But when I see it from the credible threat theory, I realize, man, that's what's happening, right? If you want to spread that, essentially what it is that they want you to, they'll pay you to do it. If you don't, yeah, they're gonna start, squashing your channel. All right. Clickbait titles. Yeah, you will change your belief system if your paycheck depends on it. Yeah, I guess. Light a cigar, pour a glass of red wine, and enjoy your day. It is inversely proportional to your revenue, not my business. I'm not asking, but you might want to factor that in. Yeah, well, here's the thing. You're right. You can always tell by the massive subscriber counts who they are. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I'm not going to change what it is that I think and feel and believe. Like that isn't so that I can adapt to making more money on YouTube by spreading some sort of, I don't know, wild story out there. I can only give you what it is that I feel is the appropriate stuff, what it is that I think is actually happening with monetary policy and how you can relate to it and how it is that you can conduct yourself in accordance to that. I don't know anybody else who's doing this. I really don't. Like, I cannot find anybody else. And I wish there was, because when I feel like I'm the only one and I'm like so adamant about it and just kind of feel like I'm just beating a dead horse, repeating it over and over again, I don't know what else it is that I need to exactly do in order to get this information out there. I've tried so many different ways. I've just come to the understanding it's not going to, right? There's only going to be a handful of people who really want it, and if they really want it, they're going to come get it, right? Once they've gotten it, they're going to see it in a whole different light. Everybody who has ever told me about who has ever done any research into the credible threat theory and come back and said, dude, man, you just nailed this. You have got this so dialed in. And it's not like I'm some sort of super genius, right? It's just the words of the Fed itself. And I just listened to the Fed itself. Like, I didn't listen to the mainstream media. I didn't listen to the propagandized information. I didn't do any of that. I kept reading these speeches over and over again. And I was realizing in these speeches, they started communicating things that were not being communicated out there on the rest of the media. And as I kept going through that information, I realized, holy crap, there is two different discussions that are happening here. Like, literally two different discussions that are happening. So as I started to share that, people were recognizing it. And a lot of people were like, dude, keep going, man, this is great. And other people were like, dude, you have no clue. You're just a shill. And I'm like, oh no, right? Like, don't fall for it. Don't fall for that, because you're going to give them the power. And then they got really mad at me and bailed. And I'm like, well, there it goes, right? All right. Your info is the lost key to the truth of economics. Well, thank you, Mr. Mugimo? I don't watch many YouTube channels, but always watch when you come on. I appreciate your thoughts on this. Well, thank you. I very much appreciate that. We need a preamble to the UE channel. We the people. Exactly. Keep your integrity. I watch all your videos. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate the support. I really do, because many of you know when I was like when the channel was really running up, when lumber was taking off to the all-time highs and people were really wanting to know what was going on with that, the channel was incredibly popular then. And when you're putting out videos that are getting 20, 30,000 views a video, yeah, your channel is making a lot of money. Your channel makes a lot of money. And I knew at the time that it wasn't going to last forever, right? Like nothing lasts forever. And as much as I wanted it to, much as I believed it, it was a perfect timing for the channel. People were locked down. There was a lot of views happening. There was stimulus money out there. There was all kinds of things that were happening that gave that channel the absolute perfect spot to be in for me to deploy those videos out there and make a bunch of money. And I used it to get out of debt and buy a house. And that, if that is the only thing I got from that, was pretty damn cool, right? That was pretty cool. I'm going to be okay with it. I'm accepting of it. Everything else that comes into the future is just nothing but a bonus for me. So as I move into this and I keep going and I keep diving into the research and I keep sharing it and I try to get other people to join in and understanding the credible threat theory so that they can recognize what it is that's happening with monetary policy and to look for the inflation expectation as that monetary policy, I have plenty of people who come to me and say, dude, thank you for doing this. Right? I think, man, thank you for being here. Because I don't know what else I would be doing. I love this topic. I am very interested in it. I love sharing the idea with people, and having that in my life is awesome. Right? The money was a nice bonus. And make sure to hit the like button. Yeah, it's pretty easy. If supporting the Uneducated Economist is super easy. Comment, like, subscribe, sharing the videos. That doesn't cost you anything, right? And that's the easiest way to to support the Uneducated Economist. You guys, once you have understood the credible threat theory and you're sharing that with other people, you can make money off of the affiliate program from the UE University. So just send them an affiliate link, they sign up, you make a little bit of money off of it too. Everybody can make money off of the credible threat theory just by spreading the information around. Join in on the UE community to have the discussion about it. Any questions you have, I mean, we love being over there talking about all this stuff. I'm constantly here on YouTube talking about it, but the UE University is a great place to stay on topic, and it's a, wonderful place to get all that information on the credible threat theory. So, and it supports the Uneducated Economist, and I would much rather have something like that than have to suffer with the algorithm of YouTube not wanting to spread my information because I'm not propagandized delivery message like they want me to be. All right. Thanks for the show. You bet. And I think we're done here, right, guys? Keep sharing. The K-shaped economy will continue until there is no middle class left. You either have assets or not. Well, that's really what it comes down to. Like, if you're not positioning yourself into a way that you can acquire assets, especially cash flowing assets, rental properties are probably the number one way that people can use leverage to get into a cash flowing asset. Dangerous for a lot of people, but once you understand the game, it's probably a lot easier than most people had ever given it consideration for. The work involved in it is quite extensive. The time in it is probably a lot longer than people would want it to be, but the reward from it is a very good position inside of this economy because it's really the property owners who live independently. Capitalists can live independently too, but they don't get to make really any decisions except for where their money is. Property owners make decisions on style and conditions and everything. Like, property owners make the decision on everything. All right. Make sure those assets are secure. Military spending makes no sense. Canada. Oceans are not a threat. Where is the boogeyman threats, such as waste Army veteran? Military spending makes no sense. Actually, I think securing the shipping channels and making sure that everything is done in dollars is what's making sense for them, right? So as long as they have the ability to protect the shipping channels and force the shipping channels to be done in dollars, the military is what's doing that. So yeah, the military does make sense in that fashion. I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing, right? You give it any consideration you want. I'm just saying that's what's happening with it. All right. I think we're done here, guys, right? It was a good morning. Nice talk. Fed independence, criminal behavior. What's the real criminal behavior of the Federal Reserve? Is it really like a misappropriation of money in a budget, or is it some real deep, dark criminal problems that we face within this central banking system that nobody, especially the administration, will really go after? Right? Call him a jerk for like screwing up his own budget, call him a clown for that, while your own debacle costs 25 times more to the taxpayer, to the average everyday individual. This is what I find hilarious about the whole thing, is that the distraction of it is really quite obvious. But what does it really do? It elevates the inflation expectations, right? What does this see here? Wayne says, Walter Riley, he who controls the seas controls trade, therefore controls the world. Yeah. Yui, your clear, consistent explanation over the years of our economic system is helpful. I must do what I can. I can take responsibility for my actions and love those around me. This is freedom. Right on. Well, thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate all these wonderful commentaries that you have about the not only the channel, but for the sharing of the information, but the credible threat theory in itself. Because really that's coming down to the heart of it now. So it's like that is like essentially my product, right? That's the one thing that I have for sale. You can buy a hoodie, or you can go buy an essay or something like that, and I'll make a little commission off of those things. But the credible threat theory, that's my product. That's the thing that I want to push out there. That's the one thing that I wish people would internalize, grasp, have a better understanding of. Actually, I would really think that there's people out there who can do some real research. Like I barely graduated high school, right? I would think that there's some people out there who could do some real research, who could take the credible threat theory and really run with it, right? And really develop it into something that could be like shared out there on the college level or whatever. I mean, I think it's already there myself personally, but I mean, what do I know? I've never been to college. I barely graduated high school, like I said, but I put this thing together for you to have a better understanding of what it is that's taking place here within this economy. It is my product, right? It's the only thing I have to sell. Uh, Can't keep a good man down. All right. Unless this country gets manufacturing again, things will only get worse. This country is not getting manufacturing again. That's why we have to understand like the Cantillon effect as much as we do. It's why I share the essay as much as I do and try and get people to read at least those 3 chapters, the increase and decrease of money to the state, because it explains very clearly what is happening with our manufacturing. Like, I mean, he wrote the essay 250 years ago and explained what will happen with your manufacturing base if you continue to have new money pouring into the system. People will move into luxuries, the prices will move up, and the foreign competitors will move in. It's just the way it works. So there is no bringing manufacturing back. It's just like there's going to be new money that comes in, right? That new money comes in from debt issuance. It's not coming in from manufacturing. We are not competitive enough to build things and sell them to the world when you have somebody out there who's willing to do the same thing and they're going to sleep on the ground. That's like, you can't compete against that. All right. My phone's about ready to die, so we'll call it here at the hour-and-a-half mark. And I hope everybody has a great weekend. Haters gonna hate, players gonna play. Yeah. So, Alrighty. Unless the country gets... Oh, we already read that one. All right. I think we're actually done here, guys. It was a lot of fun hanging out here this morning, going over all this information. And I really hope that it doesn't get so ugly out there that, that people just end up losing it and rioting. But eventually that's what ends up happening to the people if they end up working for, like, if they have to put 50% of their money towards food, they lose their mind. They will riot after that. I would only assume that there is going to be attempts to try and force feed consumption into the lower half of the economy. UBI payments or something of that nature. This is probably the inevitable outcome, just to try and hold the system together so that the new money can continue to pour in. Otherwise, the inequality is going to grow, and it's going to get worse once the UBI turns on, because people are going to spend the money and other people are going to invest it, and that's going to, just create the problem even worse. So I don't know what it is that they could put out there that would prevent that outcome from happening, but it's most likely going to be a very ugly situation to have to be facing if UBI payments are required in order to keep the system together. Incidentally, Iraq and Afghanistan are predominantly Sunni, which tend to be more radical. The Shia tend to be more rational, and now U.S. actions are radicalizing them. We need class action lawsuits. Yeah, I mean, like class action lawsuits against the Fed. Didn't George Gammon try to do that? Like, didn't he try to get like some lawyers together to go sue the Fed? Thank you, Simon. Your light shines bright. Well, thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. We're going to call it quits here. I keep saying it over and over again, but the comments keep coming up, and I just want to keep reading them. But I just want you to take that from today, at least from today's message about Powell and the investigation into Powell and what that really means for the Federal Reserve's independence. It's really a questioning of the independence. It doesn't change anything about the Federal Reserve, but it does raise and lower the inflation expectation. This, to me, is setting up essentially the ability to use the Federal Reserve and the issues that they are facing within the Department of Justice as a propagandized, weaponized information to elevate the inflation expectation on the Fed independence. Like, to me, that is what is going to be taking place, because the results of whatever was to come from this investigation doesn't change anything about the Federal Reserve. Like, change Powell doesn't matter, right? Right or wrong doesn't matter, right? If he lied, it doesn't change anything about monetary policy. This is about their own budget on a renovation. It's all about lying to Congress, and that's really the issue. It doesn't have anything to do with monetary policy. It doesn't have anything to do with inflation. It doesn't have anything to do with anything of reality except the people's expectations about the Fed independence. That it has a real situation, You've led the horse to water. Now they need to drink it, even though you can't make them. That's it. I can only share as much as I can share. Friendly reminder: hover. What does that say? Hover the cursor over the thumb, up and down. Don't matter. Click one. It's 99.9% free. Thank you very much. Yeah, and it doesn't really matter. Even if you don't like the video, by hitting the thumbs down button, it's almost as good, right? Because essentially it shows engagement, right? And that's really what the algorithm is looking for, is engagement. Lots of comments, lots of engagement, lots of sharing. If it shares, like if you're sharing the video, then the algorithm wants to go out there and share the video too, because it's all about advertising. So if people are watching it, they're wanting to share it, At least that's kind of the idea behind it. I don't know if it's necessarily working anymore. For me, anyhow. All right. You guys are awesome. Uneducated Economist. You let me know.